All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining our second episode of the You Better Me podcast. This is where, if you're out there trying to self-actualize, trying to improve your life, trying to become your best self, all that stuff. We know it's not easy. We know we've had our own struggles, and nobody really likes digging deep and seeing all that dark stuff about, who we are and what we've been doing. And so we created this to help, educate, inspire, and uplift any of you out there who are trying to find ideas, education, or anything like that about, trying to make this life a little bit better and become a little bit better person. Today, my guest his name is Gator. Now, Gator, what's your full legal name?
Yeah, Gator Davis. Gator Latimer Davis is my name.
The artist formerly known as David Carter. Gator Latimer Davis.
That is correct.
So, Gator, let's jump right in it. Bro, wide open.
Wide open spaces.
What do you do with wide open spaces?
I don't know. You just roll with it, right? So the subject, our content this morning, we've talked about a few different people that we know that are close to us. And people that have affected us in some way, and that could be positive or negative. But the point is that me realizing and listening to you and some of the things that you said this morning is that we're definitely not alone in this feeling. There's something that'll come to you once you're ready and you get to that spot when you're in your life and you realize that things aren't what you thought that they were. And all of your beliefs, you just start questioning everything. People call it a midlife. They call it, an existential crisis. All of the things that they call it. And even society and media has a way of making it look funny. Like, oh, look at this idiot. He had to go buy a red car because he's having a midlife crisis. And it's like, well, no, this guy wants to live his life. And he's realizing he's been following everybody else's ideas and plans, these societal plans and these constructs. And then you get to a point where none of that shit makes sense. And then when it happens to you, you feel like you're alone and you're kind of on your own. And sometimes, even when I've been going through some of mine, I find myself in fits of confusion and anxiety and fear. Like, I don't know what the hell's going on. What the hell am I actually doing? I even got in a fight with my family because I'm like, I'm not sure what the hell's going on with this. What are we doing here? And it's just, everybody has these things that are popping up, and we have these people around us that needed every bit as much as we did or do. So you talk about like your buddy, and then we talk about my buddy, and there's there's some differences there, but I don't know, it's exciting to think, maybe not exciting, but interesting to think of all the different aspects. Everybody's going to go through this same thing, hopefully, right?
Yeah, like that's the similarity between us all. Like, we're eventually going to come to the same conclusion. It's just a matter of when and how hard are we looking for it. Because we all know people who are like, yeah, I know that I need to do this, but one day maybe I will consider possibly thinking about doing something about it. I've been there.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I think that I'm kind of in somewhat of a fortunate position. Some people might not agree, but the constructs that I've grown up with, I used to kind of get upset with my family because of the way that I was raised. I used to I'd look back and be like, how come we never did a family reunion? How come we never celebrated birthdays? How come we didn't make an effort to go out of our way to be together? How come our family didn't push each other to even just do basic things like completing your high school and stuff like that? So I didn't really have all of this structure. And so I kind of attributed where I'm at with not having that type of structure, not having the family love and the family support and all of that. But then I look at the contrast of it, that puts me in a position where I'm still open. Because even though I'm still locked down into my own belief systems, I feel like they're not as extravagant as somebody else. Think of these people and, these ecclesiastical people, these people who've dedicated their entire life to this religion. And not only have they dedicated and built their whole lives around it, but they've molded everyone around them to believe the same thing. Now, what happens to that guy when he steps right into my shoes? when he's built up a literal fortress of beliefs, so maybe he's going to have a lot more hard of a time trying to figure out where the hell he's at, because he's already drug like 50 people along with him. So maybe some of us that are kind of feeling on the outside a little bit and not sure where to go, we're in an even better position than somebody who is fully enveloped in their beliefs.
Dude, I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes because your story is probably the most unique out of all the people that I know. I know a lot of people have gone through some shit. I know a lot of people have seen some crazy stuff. I know some people who have just lived absolutely weird, unfortunate, whatever you want to call it, lives, but your story is the most unique. And so with that being said, like, dude, was there a turning point or was it a collection of things? But what finally made you open your eyes and be like, wait a second here? What was that?
I got to a point where I was very confused. We didn't have all of the things that I just mentioned, all of those values and traditions. The way that we grew up is we did learn to understand the value of present moments in a way, but it mainly came from just not being able to have any foresight. so so we were kind of stuck in the present moment in that way, but it was mainly because we didn't have any foresight for the future. We didn't have any plans for anything. We didn't have any direction. It's kind of an interesting perspective. So what we were doing each and every day was just living for that day, to make it through that day. And in some instances, whether or not we were going to have a roof over our head that day. So my whole life became, how are we going to get through this day? And so some of the habits that I started choosing weren't the best ones. They involved substances and women and people and different things. And so I kind of got stuck in that routine, and I was doing it for so long, where just living for the day, which means we're going to have as much fun as we can, which means we're going to party as much as we can. And it just started making me sick mentally, physically, more mentally, but extremely physically as well. And it got to a point where I knew that I had to stop this. And when I stopped it, I went through a fit for about 3 or 4 months trying to figure out how to conduct myself and how to maybe create foresight or to create something that I could strive for. And so that confusion was when I was, just in this struggle within, where I'm trying to figure out, this is what I've been my whole life. I can tell everything inside of me is telling me that this isn't the right path. But now all as I know is I'm not going down that path anymore, but I don't know what path I'm going down. And that's when I really started looking at, what can I do? How can I find some sort of a path? And I started looking at what kind of made me different. And I think that what made me different compared to people around me, my friends, even my family, because I have a huge family, but I'm still one of a kind. I was kind of the stray of the family. So I had a unique quality. I never really understood what it was. But the unique quality was to create happiness out of nothing, was to pretend that I had everything that I wanted, to pretend that everything was fine. And when you do that, you can manufacture emotions. I naturally did that as like a defense mechanism growing up. So I manufacture these emotions that aren't even real. I'll just tell myself that everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be okay. There was a lot of abuse and drug abuse and physical abuse and sexual abuse and all the stuff happening all around me all the time. And so I would constantly just be like, well, I'm just going to make myself be happy. And then when I got into this position where I was so confused, started finding people that were saying, just, it's kind of like fake it till you make it in a way. It's feel the vibration, feel the emotion, manifest it. So before I was pretending, now I'm manifesting. And I've been doing it my whole life. Now I understand how, and even potentially why. So cultivating the emotions is like the main thing that I've learned. So the turning point, to answer your question, was that I had a crisis with myself. And then within the crisis and in the aftermath of the crisis is when I found some of these answers. And as I applied them, I realized that I was better at it than I thought, because I'd already had some of these qualities that I might have just created for coping.
So what were coping tools like pretending you developed into manifesting? And you and I talk about that shit all the time, like the what and how, but what is your own personal either definition of what it is? And then more importantly, like how do you put that in a box and say, yo, follow these steps and you'll see magic?
if I were going to give somebody advice on how to do it.
Sure. Or even if you just package it, like, for me, I create little steps and notes or things or processes or systems for myself sometimes because it's like, I'll learn something today and it could be a month down the road and I've forgotten all about it. But then I'll learn something else about it. I'm like, oh, I already learned this. Why didn't I already blah, blah, blah? So I'll try to create these systems or like 3 steps, 5 steps, 7 steps to get back into a direction that I know leads me away from the trouble of learning lessons the hard way and the love and joy and excitement for life of following my purpose, my path that is intended for my best self and my best ideal future. What would that be?
Well, this might sound stupid, but in a lot of ways, it's pretty easy. And maybe it's easy for me because the one thing that I've had to realize as I'm growing through this is you don't necessarily have to have a specific plan. It's good to have a specific plan, have all these things in mind, but following the steps of the plan isn't necessarily how you get there in this way, just in this way that I'll try and explain. And
Okay.
I've said this to you before, and I learned this from Abraham Hicks, is that the only reason that we want anything is for the feeling of it.
Yes.
The only way that you're going to be able to manifest anything properly is if you're feeling in the right direction. And so step one for me is to actually analyze exactly, like sit and think about how I feel in an alone space by myself. Mostly it's in the morning when I'm still just laying there in bed and just getting out of bed. I didn't set an alarm, so I don't have anything chattering in my head. I don't like having a bell wake me up in the morning and say, don't forget to do this. I don't wake up to alarms because I don't want your chatter in my head. I don't need to look at my phone to decide how I feel. I want to actually listen to myself and see how I feel. And you can take a moment in those mornings, and I can do this, and I know that a lot of people can do it, but you can get like a heart and a head and a heart and a mind connection where if you're sitting there in a relaxed state and you put all of your focus into your heart and your head, you don't even necessarily need to think. A lot of people will say, think of that day. Think of the most amazing vacation you had. Think of that day when you proposed to your wife. Think of that day on the beach when you guys had the most magnificent, fantastic things that happened. And then, think of those things to make you happy. But for me, I can just think about being happy for no reason, and I can actually start to feel a physical reaction in my heart. And that feeling that I get when I sit and just imagine how I want to feel. I want to feel grateful. I want to feel happy. I want to feel healthy. My body knows how to do that already. I can tell it to do that, and almost on command at times I can get the physical reaction. And then I have the emotion. And back to Abraham Hicks, now I have the emotion. The emotion of what? Of perfect happiness. So in that situation, you've cultivated the emotion. Now you're in a position to start working on whatever steps you've set forth. Now you're actually in a position to figure out what those steps are, because you might not even know what any of your steps are because you're not truly really being guided by your, I don't know, your inner being when you're all left brained and you're just like making plans and taking action.
Yeah, totally.
You have to get rid of all of that stuff and hop into a space where you can cultivate that emotion. And when that emotion rises up, now you're in the state to receive. Now you're in a state where you can actually start truly contemplating with a true heart, with your mind, body, and your inner being and your spirit to try and start deciding what some of those steps are. It's about getting the emotion first. And it's not just a thought. It's not just, you can't just sit and think, I wonder what it feels like to have $1 million in the bank, or one day. If you're talking about things that you don't have, then you're telling your inner being that I don't have these things. That's why I'm thinking about how wonderful it'll be when I do, because I don't now. That's what the universe sees. I don't now. And then the universe as a mirror is going to say, yes, you're correct. You don't have that. Here's more of this stuff you don't need. It's just interesting for me personally to find out that I'm not chasing financial wealth anymore. I'm not chasing amazing, relationships with people. I'm not chasing anything. All I'm doing is chasing, I guess I'm chasing an emotion of all of those things. What's the emotion of it? And if you can gain that emotion without receiving the object, what's the difference? the only way to receive the object is to feel like you already have it. And if you feel like you already have it, then you don't need to get another one. It's a perfect catch 22.
They say that the body and the brain or the subconscious, they don't know the difference. So when you feel that you already have it, they say yes, you have it. And then of course when you feel it, the universe says yes, I have it, and that starts to attract it to you. And it's funny because when we say no, I don't have it, just like you were saying, the universe says, well, here's more of
What
the
you
no,
don't
you don't
have.
have it. Yeah, you're correct. Yes, you are correct. Here's more of that to confirm and give you, the bias that you need to understand that this is where you're at. So I've got it down, and I just kind of wrote a note that, step one is to evaluate and become aware of how you feel, and then sit in a relaxed state and really feel that. You rolled into descriptive words of how it felt, because I ask people when they say, well, I feel happy. And I'll be like, well, just tell me, how does that feel? What does that feel like? Well, I don't know. It's happy. And it's almost like there becomes a shift. Like somebody shuts down when feeling is trying to be felt or expressed. Some people, don't have the practice behind it or the ability to put words to how they feel. And you did it so perfectly. Like you're like, when I feel this happiness. And then you started rolling into words like, I feel like I'm grateful. I feel like, and I know you didn't say these words, I'm just making this up now, but I feel fulfilled. I feel excited. I feel, inspired, grateful. And did you ever have a spot where you didn't know how to describe the way you feel?
That's exactly what I was about to chime in with. Is the fact of this is for me is that there's not even close to, a set of words that could possibly even come close to describing exactly how I feel, because those feelings don't have words attached to them that can effectively convey it. There's only little words that you can use that'll point in the direction of the feeling that you're talking about. Like you're saying, grateful, happy, healthy, loving, loved. Those are great and they're amazing, but they're nothing compared to the actual emotion that you're trying to say, that you're actually feeling, but you're trying to convey it with words that don't exist. For somebody who's a little further along down the path, sitting there thinking about specific objects can actually throw them off. That's what happens to me a little bit. Thinking about the specific things that make me happy sometimes throws me back, because in your head somewhere you kind of feel like there might be varying degrees of happiness. I'm happy when I do this, I'm happier when I do that. Which is
Mm.
better, right?
Hmm.
Basically what I'm saying is you can fit good, happy, all of those things into one category. When you're on the highest, your highest of highs, when you're as happy as you can possibly be, then everything is that happy. You know, the one thing that made you happy is just, it makes you just as happy as the thing that made you happier before. You raise your beacon so high. Sometimes I feel like I've raised my beacon so high. You get past all of the little things that you were thinking of, the stepping stones. They say that gratitude is the highest, like the highest vibration that you can get to, right?
Hmm.
But if somebody who's perfectly tuned in and perfectly enlightened, then aren't they just on? Isn't everything make you that happy?
It makes sense, dude, because it's something that I've only learned in this last year that when I am, okay, let's say this. I've been in plenty of relationships and I've been the cause of the failure of plenty of relationships. And I've noticed for myself that when I am critical about someone else, especially my partner at the time, my wife or whatever, it's, and I'm unhappy with the way she said something, the way she didn't, or the what she did or what she didn't do, and I become critical and even resentful of it, which is kind of like the worst frequency to get into about, your partner. I recognize it took me a long time to recognize this and take accountability for it, but I am critical of other people, generally the closest people to me, when I am secretly critical about myself, but I'm not addressing it, and I'm taking that attention and putting on someone else. And on the same token, to go with what you were saying, is when I am just on my mission, I'm on my path, and I don't give a fuck what someone else thinks. And I don't care if it's good or pleasing to anyone else. And I don't care if there's haters or lovers out there. When I am happy and I am living my most genuine day in life, I feel so good that everybody around me, even that woman, even the drivers on the road, even the person in the drive-through that messed up my order, it doesn't matter. I'm like, hey, it's all good. Nothing can touch me. Nothing can break me down. Ain't nobody going to break my stride type of thing, because I am in such a happy state that even the shit in the world can't get me down until I find something internally with my own limiting beliefs or unhealed trauma or whatever it is that makes me start being critical inside, not taking accountability for it. So, what do I do about it? I focus on somebody else's shit. And that's the only reason why I believe that we focus on other people, is because we got shit inside of us. Because when life is good, just like you're saying, when you're happy, everyone around you is doing good.
You know what? That was really helpful for me. And it kind of, it actually kind of filled in the blank on what I was trying to describe to you in a way just before that, because what you're saying is that you can be so elevated that nothing else bothers you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I was trying to describe is if there's nothing there that can bother you, are there still varying degrees of happiness? Let me give you an example. Sometimes I get feeling so good. Okay. So maybe it's when I'm playing an instrument. I get feeling so good that the thought of winning $1 million doesn't even compare to it. That's why I was saying sometimes I won't even bother with reiterating these goals in my head and the things that make me feel so happy, because I'm already buzzing so high that the things that I can think of, the things that I can articulate, which we've already described as being a horrible way to actually communicate, is words. It's terrible,
True.
right? So now it's just the emotion. Remember when we talked about sometimes you get vibing into that spot where you're just so elevated, and then the next day you don't feel quite as good as you did the day before.
Mm-hmm.
And your
Yes.
natural assumption is to think that you backpedaled. But the better way to look at it is no, because it's like you have to reach up. Everybody gets the low hanging fruit, but it's the guy that reaches up and grabs the high hanging fruit and brings it back down for everybody else for a minute. Then everybody can eat all of that high hanging fruit, get healthy enough to reach up and finally grab it themselves. It's a wave. It's the real estate market, bro, since 1905.
Dude, listen, this is how cool you and I are on the same vibration. We're on the same frequency, because earlier in the conversation you had said something about, you're super high and super low, and we have these times, and I relate it to the frequency, but I broke down the word to how frequent we are up, how frequent we are down, and the distance in between. And that's how they measure frequency. How high, how low, and the distance in between determines what frequency it is. And if I remember correctly, we're talking about these highs and lows, and you talked about the high hanging fruit and being up and down. But what I learned from you, and I just 2, 3 days ago, I wrote this on my whiteboard. I drew these different frequencies, and what kind of frequency do I want to live, and what is it like to go up, what is it like to go down, what's the distance between, what kind of frequency do I want to create. And what the image you gave to me was summed up in a phrase you said: as long as you're 1% better than yesterday. So we go up, it doesn't matter how high you go up, as long as you don't drop down to the same level where you're learning the same fucking hard lessons over and over and over and feeling like an idiot. You just make one change to when you do come down, because it will happen. Life will challenge us. Life will become hard. Life will test us when we come down. As long as we don't go down as far as we were before or below, which is worse, but we just maintain this 1% increase. And then we go back up, we come back down, maintain a 1% increase.
Yeah, dude, this is the way that I see it, because this isn't just coming from a personal experience or something I learned from somebody else or whatever. I've been here, and I've been watching the way that this works, because we've all seen people go and get super high, and we've seen them go down and you could go all the way to rock bottom. We've seen them pop up halfway and go back down to even further than we thought was rock bottom. We've seen activity like that, right? For me personally, I would tell me, if I had a son, I would just tell him this right here. I guarantee you, that if you still your mind and you take on meditation and you do some breath work, you do some of those things where you can get into a spot where you can cultivate those emotions. When you look around, your inner being is going to point you in the right direction. Right now, you're not pointed in it. But if you still your mind and you meditate and you follow these few little steps, when you get up, your inner being will point you in that right direction. When you're pointed in that right direction, from then on, you will never lose ground. It's one step forward, half back. It's 3 steps forward, half back. It's 10 steps forward, 5 back, but it's never all the way back. There are no losses. Every moment that you spend contemplating, thinking, stilling your mind, deciding what you're doing, every single moment is a step closer to higher. And as far as I can tell, there is no boundary. It's limitless. That's what I've discovered for myself.
And I want to take that a little further. You said a couple things I want you to expound on. And one, you said, if you sat down your son, you said, follow these steps. You'll still your mind, meditate, and follow these steps. Question number one is, what steps would that be? And then two, you said, if you follow these steps, follow the direction that you're pointed by your inner self. And here's something I think I've questioned, and maybe I still do, because if I did this better, I'd probably be in a better position, I guess, in life. And a lot of people I talk to, they either haven't ever heard of this, they don't get the concept, or they say, I don't even know how to recognize what direction I'm supposed to go. So, what are these steps, or how do you know what direction to go?
Well, you know what? That's a pretty loaded question, and off the top, I'll attempt to answer it. If I had to break it down in physical steps, what do I do right now? I get my ass up off the couch and start walking. What do I do right now?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that number one is to meditate. And there's so many great people to listen to. I love listening to Joe Dispenza talk about his ideas are great. And
Yes.
I haven't really ran into anybody's ideas on meditation who are not great. They're all great. Pick one.
Agreed.
Practice it. Do not stop. Do not just sit down for 15 minutes. A lot of people will steal they might steal their mind for 5 minutes, and that's fantastic. But I'm telling you, do it for longer. Do it for an hour. You're going to struggle. You'll be in your comfortable spot, struggling, fighting, trying to get out. Your mind just fighting you every which way. And you got to steal your mind. You have to stop everything that's charging ahead of you, all these thoughts, everything that's going on in your life and your mind and your family, and everything's, your operating system is going nuts. And you're sitting there in the dark. You got to shut it down. You're in control. Every bit of it. You have to, and it takes time. I think that if you sat down and meditated for an hour a day, 30 days straight, when you got up, you would see a path. That's number one, is just find some way to get into meditation. Breathwork is awesome too. 5-minute breathwork video, YouTube. A guy will hop on there and play drums. They'll sit and pound these amazing freaking djembe drums and African drums and congos, and they'll show you how to breathe. Take 5 minutes, breathe. Nobody gets up from doing a 5-minute breathwork with a frown on their face. No one. It's amazing.
That's so true.
So breathwork, meditation, those are your 2 steps. The second thing to do would be to find something that you like to do that is just yours, that's just for you. You don't even have to have a conversation with anybody about it. You don't have to share it. You don't have to take a picture and post it. You don't have to do it. It's just for you, something that you've always wanted to do. A guitar, a drum, a language, paper mache, whatever it is. Find something and get into it. Put yourself into situations where you are in complete peace with 0 distractions. I'm talking no phone. I don't even listen to music with words when I do this. All instrumentals. I listen to music the whole time too, by the way. Find something that you can put really intense focus on that you like to do, and do it. You'll find yourself in spaces when you're working on things that you love, that you're just doing by yourself, that you're not attempting. If you're planning on showing it to anyone, it's because you've created an expectation with it. And if you set an expectation, you're going to be disappointed, most of the time. It's not for anyone else. When you get into those zones, they can be so powerful. Everything inside your heart and your mind, your brain, is just clicking together in perfect synchronicity. And you're working on these things, and It doesn't matter how much you accomplish during the time that you're doing that, and if in physically with accomplishing your task, but you will feel the most fulfilling feeling from it. Those are the emotions that you have to sit and cultivate. Those are how you draw them out. You draw out the clarity with meditation. You find something that you're happy with and put your energy into it. Make it beautiful, make it pretty, make it amazing. And it's just yours. And keep it for yourself, even. You'll find yourself in spaces where you can't help but feel amazing. If you feel amazing, you're pointing in the right direction.
Damn, bro. I was taking notes and I had to stop taking notes because I realized there was so much that you were speaking to me that I was learning from, growing from. I was purely being downloaded. Like I was plugged into the matrix and it was like you were teaching me jujitsu just in a matter of 7 seconds. The beautiful thing of this is I can't wait to go back and listen to this. I can't wait to probably listen to this multiple times and let it run on repeat so I can absorb it into the important parts of my subconscious because these steps are gold.
Dude, that's really cool, man. Thank you. You know what's really cool about that? This is
Hmm.
just honest. This is pure honesty. When what you said just happened here and is happening right now is so true. And I can feel this energy. I just realized that as we just talked for the last 5 minutes, I was holding my hand on my chest the whole time. I didn't realize I was doing that. And I was holding it there the whole time because I can feel it and I can feel it coming from you too. And if you don't know what that is, you better find out because it's called the secret to the universe. It's the unified field and it actually exists and it actually exerts on you. You are it. You are part of it, but yeah, I mean, you can sure feel it. And when you do, there's no mistake. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it, man. Once you feel it, you'll always know that there's a place out there that exists because you've been there.
You just you made so much sense to me right there. If I were to put my words to it, it is that I get a sense, a thought, a feeling, a confirmation. It's as if the universe has just given me a message through a manifested physical feeling, a sensation that says, I am working in your favor. Let's go.
How do you know? How do you feel?
That's it. Oh, you answered the question. How do you know what direction to go? By the way you feel.
Yeah. You got to
Well,
feel your way around this place. It's almost like emotional dowsing rods, man. David Wim Hof says it perfectly. He says, listen, feel, listen with your heart. This is an emotional language. The unified field, the only way that you can connect to it is through frequency and vibration, which is spirit. That's the nature of spirituality. It's a real thing. It exists all around us. We have learned to convey information back and forth to each other through words because that's how we do it in this physical world. You got to say words. You got to make these descriptions. Have you ever learned a new language? It's interesting. Everything you think you know about communication changes because it's a completely different form of communication. That's all this is. It doesn't have words. It only directs through emotion. The emotion is the path. The emotion is the actual measurable frequency. When you have an emotion that's super high, that frequency is measurable. Same as when you're low. You can measure it with scientific equipment. Let Joe Dispenza show you. It exists. It's so interesting to realize they have scientifically identified the nature of spirituality. That's what got me, actually. You asked me earlier, what got you? I told you I was at a turning point. I didn't like what I was doing, this and that, this and that. We've all been there a million times. We've all been there maybe the whole time. But what happened was I saw Joe Dispenza measure this dude's energy with a physical instrument and then describe to me what it was. Then I started thinking back on everything that I knew about religion and spirituality and connected the dots. This is real. Somebody has proof. And it's been, and humanity has been howling it from the rooftops since the beginning of time. Then it finally took a picture or some physical evidence to grind me. I didn't have those types of influences growing up, so I didn't learn a lot about religion, but I know now.
okay, so I just looked at the time. Well, I think you and I could do this all day, but there are a couple things I want to touch on here. Were some notes that I made here, and you just touched on a little bit here. You're talking about the answer of what got you. What was that moment, that turning point? And So just what I've got here is, in your confusion, you started seeking. I recognize that pain was there. That causes seeking. No foresight. That was trippy to me because you said, we were just living for the day and we were living for the moment. We were in the moment. And I had this conflict in my head because you hear all these, what
Live in
we
the
call gurus or
now.
masters. Yeah, like just live for the day, live in the now. And I'm like, holy shit, there's an adverse effect of that. And Gator's telling me about it right now. Right
Mhm.
here, right now. He's telling me about it. And then you use the word crisis. And then you said there was a phrase you said, like you questioned, what path am I going down? And the main thing that I really want to kind of jump to here is you said something that's piqued my interest. And I don't know if what you've said since, but I've thought about it a couple times now. But you said, you started recognizing that you were unique in your family. You were unique even in life, and you had this ability to pretend, which turned into manifesting. If if you were to either shoot from the hip, or if you already have this answer, how does somebody find out who they are or how they're unique?
I don't know why I have an answer for this. And to be honest with you, I don't know why I have answers for any of the questions you've asked today because I don't have conversations like this, bro. I like to.
I like to too. You and I do it
How
often.
you
I love it.
how do you get it? I'll tell you what I think. I think that spirit comes from that spirit that you had when you were a kid, when the world was new, when you didn't know what was on the other side of the street, let alone the other side of the block, let alone the other side of the county. You didn't know what each day was going to bring. So why is it now, as we've gotten older, we've gotten so good at planning that everything is planned start to finish, and there's no more excitement. There's no more mystery. Where's the adventure? Where's the yes? Where's the thing that you just completely, that's why you can't get some people to even just, break away and go to a concert on Tuesday night. That's ridiculous. It's not part of the plan. When you're a kid, you don't know what the plan is. You're just rolling through and you're like, oh, look at that. Oh, look at this. You get excited about shit. Like, oh, I don't know, field trip day. I don't know. Never been to the planetarium. Where's that excitement at, man? Doesn't exist anymore. You're an adult. Calm yourself, sir. We've got business to attend to. How you find that spirit is through finding that thing to focus your attention on, that thing that you love to do. When you have all of your own attention and you're putting it right into something that you love to do that's creative, people talk to you about opening your heart chakra. That
Mhm.
creativity, when you open up the right flow with your creativity, it gives you all of those emotions back. It gives you all of them. That freaking, whoa, never been to the planetarium, never done that before. Like, holy crap, what's going to happen? This is the best cartoon ever. Whatever, right? Well, as soon as you
So
can find that
true.
thing and you get into that creative flow, that's what you feel like. That's how you find that creative energy. That's how you pop into it. That's how if you don't know anything about what we're talking about, you've never tried meditation, you don't know anything about spirituality, anything of that shit. Find something that you love to do, get super focused on it. Don't let anybody bother you while you're doing it. And the feeling that you get when you're doing that, that's where you start. That's one place to start.
Damn.
I have a
Damn.
few places to start, bro.
What
You
do
want
you
me to
mean?
tell you where I actually started?
Yeah.
Because you're kind of digging all this stuff out of me. This is where I actually started. I was in such a tiff over this, trying to figure out where I was at. What the hell's going on? What direction are we? Where are we going? What are we
And how
even
long ago
doing
is
here?
this? What are you
One
talking
year.
about? Is this decades? 1 year ago. Okay.
1 year is when I had all of that. And I listened to, people talk and I love listening to Jordan Peterson talk. And
Hmm.
Jordan Peterson gave me some advice that was probably the single most beneficial piece of advice that I've gotten so far. So basic, but the thing that spurred me into a daily progress is the fixing everything around you, the environment, fixing your environment. When somebody's sitting there on the couch, this was the conversation that Jordan Peterson had. Somebody said, well, where do I start? He says, what are you doing? He says, I'm sitting on the couch. He says, what's wrong with what's sitting right next to you? Is there something on the coffee table? Is there a piece of freaking fast food over there that needs to be put away? Is the carpet ruffled? Anything. There's something around you that you can fix immediately, right now. You don't even have to get your ass up off the couch. Reach over there and grab that thing and wing it over there into the trash can, and you're on the path. You get one thing in the trash can, you'll be standing right there and you'll be like, well, I might as well grab this broken pencil too. Next thing you know, your whole living room is clean. Next thing you know, the whole house is clean. Next thing you know, you're digging around in the garage and it's clean. Everything around you will improve from the tiniest first step, butterfly effect type shit. And I use that. And I wasn't getting a lot of success from it in the first couple of days. I felt like I was just doing chores. And it wasn't just my house. It was everything around me. It was, I ain't going to talk to somebody like that anymore. It was, why do I get frustrated at a gas station attendant? It's, why am I honking my horn in traffic? You know, you just decide not to do that. You just decide to smile. Sometimes the act of physically making myself smile in a contorted way as I'm walking down the street or whatever only takes about 2 or 3 minutes before I'm just smiling for fun. To do these things because I was in a spot where I needed to know. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to start. And I started with picking up those wrappers off of the floor that were sitting there in front of me and trickling it out the door to everything around me. One little thing. You know what I really like doing?
What's that?
I really like giving strangers compliments.
Oh, tell me about that, dude, because I've totally been through that myself in the last little bit. But tell me what your experience is.
Well, you know what? Going back to the pretend thing, the gift or whatever you want, the ability that I have always done, the pretending. I've always been that way too. I've always been that way. Ever since a little boy, I've always been that way because I like to see people happy. And it was just natural. I never thought until probably even just this moment, like, I love to see people happy. I've never really thought about it like that. But man, I talk to everybody in public and around me, and there isn't a day that goes by that I don't give a stranger in public comment. And it, because I don't know, it's like no one is expecting it. All these universes that everyone creates, you create your own universe. It's true. Everybody's in their own little spot. And that's what I love. And part of the reason too is just to see people be happy. But the other part of it too is to see who's awake.
Ah, or who will awake. You can give somebody a compliment and just say, you know what, you've got a great smile. It's like they sometimes they snap out like out of a hypnosis and they look at you like, oh, well, thank you. And it's like somebody just woke up to like reality, some better life or something.
That's it.
Just on my own side. I know I've told you quite a bit about, my daily affirmations that I've been doing. But one of them is today I will bless myself and others with compliments. And I found that how important it is once I started developing that. The hardest part was giving myself compliments because, you have this sometimes these internal battles. But now that I've learned to give myself compliments, like, hey, you know what, you're pretty good at this. Or, even though you're just learning, the energy that I'm putting out, the strength, the safety and security that I have inside, I am, just a stronger person now. And I can give myself those compliments.
No, you just described it. You said that when your energy is right, that you're more beautiful. You're telling yourself that you're more handsome. And you realize it's not just the meat suit that you're wearing. It's the energy that you put out while you're wearing the meat suit.
Yeah. And I think, you just opened up a new thought for me. I've spent most of my life searching. I went to great lengths to get people to like me, to validate me, to appreciate me, to want me around, to love me, to be grateful for me. And I went to great lengths, lying, cheating, stealing, exaggerating, pretending, and all this stuff. And I think for the longest time, I was trying to focus on my external. And this is what you just brought out of me. I just now realize that I was trying to be something as the shell that was attractive for people to get them to attract because I knew I knew what it was inside and I was afraid they were going to find me out. I had that imposter syndrome of, so I better act well, I better perform well, I better behave well and talk well so nobody will find out what's inside. And it's not been until this last couple of years that once I healed some shit, once I became safe and secure inside for me, now what's emanating from the center of me is attracting people because I have the safety and security, not only that I've been looking for my whole life, but that other people are looking for as well. I've been trying to attract people externally when now the attractiveness comes from inside. That was pretty cool.
Man, and isn't it fantastic that we've got enough life experience now that we can gain that perspective?
Yeah, totally, dude. Well, Gator, I sure as hell am so happy that we're having these conversations. Let's have more of these. What does that sound like to you?
Yeah, so much to think about and so much to talk about. And I'm sure that there's a ton of other people out there that are just feeling the same things. And so chime in, please, because this is why we're doing it.
Yeah, this is our gift. We're trying to take our own experiences and healing and growth and spread it to the world. We'll have many more of these conversations. In fact, I think Gator, you came up with, I don't know, a couple months ago, a phrase. You're like, yeah, dude, we're breaking the quantum code. You remember that?
Well, yeah, I absolutely do, because that's just what it felt like. Because I do a lot, I think, I study quantum physics as well, not on a scholarly level, but it's something that I'm very interested in. And when I found the correlation between spirituality and science, it reined me in and got me hooked. So quantum code, I think that's suiting.
Right on. Well, let's wrap it up, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you have received some good insight, maybe some uplifting words of encouragement, and maybe some experiences that you resonate with. Because we know, again, this isn't easy becoming your best self. More episodes to come. I've already got some recorded and edited, ready to publish as well. So stay tuned for episode number 3 and then many more to come. So, Gator, let's do this again next week. And man, appreciate your time.
And that's profound ship.
I love it.
You know, it's funny because I just like that popped into my head and it was like this play on words because it's profound shit, right? And then I was like, what are we doing here, man? What we're creating is profound ship.
That's pretty awesome. All right, bro. Okay, we'll talk to you again soon.
Bye bye.